Everybody, Shabbat Shalom. Today, B'ezrat Hashem, we're going to pick up, talk about the responsibilities that are component upon us, the Jewish people. We're going to see the arguments of Yosef and Jacob, Jacob's sons Yosef and Yehuda. And B'ezrat Hashem, we're going to get into put things together with this holiday coming up, Asara B'Tevet, what this whole fast is about and what we can learn from it. Number one is, you all know the famous words that the Yosef says to the brothers. Ani Yosef Haot Abichai, after revealing himself that I'm Yosef, is my father alive. That was a tremendous wars that the brothers couldn't take. It says in the Torah that they could not answer him. There's a story that came out in Simchat Torah on Shabbat after the war began with the Hamas. This story I heard from Rabbi Ezra Dayan, who heard it from the person who was there, and could tell us a little bit about what these words mean. Ani Yosef Haot Avichai, and the responsibility that the Jewish people have for one another. We know that a lot of people today, people who don't go to the army, either they're learning, they do other things, they go to hospitals to visit the injured soldiers, to give them a lot of kochot and to get them back on their feet. So the story is that a couple of weeks ago, there was a group of yeshiva students from the Dati Naomi, Kippah Surga yeshiva, that they went down to one of the hospitals in the south. And there was a soldier who was there who was not religious at all, and he was wounded. He was shot in the heart, but miraculously he survived. And he was also shot in the foot and the arm. And they were there, they were visiting him, and they were trying to encourage him that he's gonna get out of it, he's gonna come back. And the non-religious soldier told one of these yeshiva students, "Why don't you go to the army?" He said, "Well, listen, and we talked about it in the past over here, that the army out there in the front lines cannot succeed without the army sitting down in the yeshiva learning for their success." And while he's talking to them, he shows them a list of the names of the soldiers that the yeshiva gave to every single yeshiva student to pray for. And he mentioned one of the names. And lo and behold, the name that he mentioned is the soldier who's sitting in the bed in the hospital in front of him. So he tells them, "That's my name. If you're praying for me, why am I here?" Obviously, Baruch Hashem, his prayers and his tefillah helped him not to get killed when he got shot to the heart. But he wanted to more. He wanted to see why, if he's praying for him and he's learning for him and he's saying his name every day, why he is now in the bed with 3 gunshots in his body. So he tells them, the soldier tells them, "Tell me." He asks him, "What time did you get shot? Which day? Which hour?" He says, "It was this day and day, 4:30 p.m. "What were you doing 4:30 p.m.? He said, "That's the time I was supposed to be learning, but that day I wasn't feeling so good. And I should have really came down to learn on time, but I didn't. I slacked off." He said, "You're slacking off, almost gave up my life." And the student could not answer him. Like Yosef's brothers, when Yosef says, "Ani Yosef, Haod Avichai, why don't you think about my father? Where's your responsibility? How's he going to feel? He's going to cry for 22 years now. What about me down here in San Francisco? You don't think about me? What's going to happen to me?" We have a Jewish thing that holds us together. It's called Aravim Zelazer. We're all responsible for each other. We're all in the same boat, and if one is trying to sink the boat by putting a hole under where he's sitting, everybody has to get up and say, "What are you doing?" Whether if they has to become more religious, he has to come back and learn Torah and to drop all the goyish ways that we're learning. We're all in this together. This is a story that came and that shows the pasuk over here how it implies to us today. How our brothers are screaming, "Ani Yosef, Haod Avichai." Are you praying for me? Are you doing something for me? We're all in this together. We're a family. Nobody could say that I'm sitting at home and chilling out. I'm okay. My family is okay. We have to continue praying for each other and do whatever we can to get through this war. That's one point. Next point we wanted to mention. Yosef again was testing the brothers to see the responsibility that they felt when they sold them to Egypt. Are they still going to do that for Benjamin? And Yehuda rises up to the challenge, and he shows that they did teshuvah. That what happened to Yosef, they're not going to let happen to Benjamin. And he says the infamous words. He says, how am I supposed to go to my father and the child is not with me? I took responsibility for him. I'm not going to let him go like his brother did. I'm not going to let him go. I'm going to teach him the ways. I'm not going to let him go physically, and for sure I'm not going to get him go spiritually. And that is a responsibility that Yosef wanted to hear. And that's why he revealed himself. How does it speak to us? A lot of times in our lives, we say, Baruch Hashem, we're going to live 120 years. I'm young, Rabbi. Let me just, have a little fun. Go a little bit here. Go a little bit there. Long time. It's good. Yehuda screams, no, that's not the way of the Jewish way of thinking. How am I supposed to go to my father after 20 and not in 80? That my childhood experiences when I was a teenager, this is the time that Hashem is testing us. What do you think? When you get 90 and a person's powers are gone, of course, it's very harder for him to sin. Of course, doing teshuvah at that time is also very good. But this is the time here and now. Hashem wants us to see when we're in the climax of our kochot, all the power that we have. Are we going to do shmirat hanayim? Are we going to watch our mouths? Are we going to understand the fact that we are a nation that's supposed to separate themselves from the goyim, not learn from them? Not learn from them. We just went through Hanukkah. We saw that all the Jewish people at that time, they almost became Hellenists. And history is repeating itself. We have to pick ourselves up. How much of the Goyish life that we have, and we don't even know that we have it. Sometimes when I go back to LA, I'm meeting with old friends. And 20 years later, when I go back and speak to them, and I'm telling them, that I remember 20 years ago you were like this, and you've changed so much. They don't even realize that they changed so much. The life of the Goyim, the acculturation to their environment. Once they're in it, they don't feel it. But when someone comes back 20 years later and sees that this is my friend. I remember a friend I had back in LA when praying Shachrit and Mincha was very easy for us because we were in yeshiva. But praying Arbit, that was a very big bonus. To go and get up from your house, to go to the shul and daven with a minyan, wow! I remember I had a very hard time doing that. But I had a friend. Then I'm like, he said, let's go to Arbit. I'm like, what do you mean Arbit? We daven Shachrit and Mincha, it's not enough? It's like, why you want to miss the minyan? 20 years later, when I went back, unfortunately, that friend, Baruch Hashem, is still holding. But he has many more problems than just davening Arbit in the minyan. You have to understand, it doesn't mean that if you're in Chutz La'aretz, it's going to also be here in Eretz Israel. When a person's going around and is acting, he wants to pick up this line and that line and this kind of clothing, that kind of clothing. I'm not saying you shouldn't, Baruch Hashem, a Jewish person always has to look representable. But to go in the midst of all the gashmiut and materialism, and I want to be the best, I want to be like him, I want to be like that, I want to be like Mike. You saw what happened to Mike. Someone who is, you don't even know what's going on with him today. That was the idol of those days, Magic Johnson. I remember having a picture of him in our house. But 20 years later, I realized what a mistake that was. I want to be like Mike. I want to be like Magic. I don't want to be like Rabbi Yosef. I want to be like the Gedolim Avardo. These are the real heroes. That's why we can't make the same mistakes anymore. Coming out of Hanukkah, when it happens every year, we're trying to learn the lesson that the Jewish people were almost lost. The Hellenists, the Greeks, they said, come on, let's just chill out together. We don't want to destroy your Beit HaMikdash. We want to have a Hanukkah party in there. Mix, dancing, let's do it. I love you, you love me, go get together. That's what Hanukkah was all about. We're not going to go back into that. We talked about it a few weeks ago. But it replays itself in this week's parashah. When they tell Yaakov Avinu, which brings us to our next point, they come and they finally say after 22 years to Yaakov Avinu that your son, your long lost son that you thought that passed away 22 years ago, that a wolf ate him, is alive. It says in the pasuk, very something very strange. It says Yaakov's heart skipped a beat. You should be jumping, dancing. What's going on? No. Thank you very much. My son is alive. That's not enough for me. I could have a son that's alive, but where is he holding? Is your son in San Francisco burning his life away in some kind of a college, married to a non-Jew, and my grandchildren, chas v'shalom, his grandchildren are not Jewish? That's not enough if my son is alive. I want to know if my son is Chai, Ha'od Yosef Chai. That's why they tell him he sees the chariots that he sends him. He sees that Yosef is sending him a message that he's still learning Torah. He sends a message that the last thing that they learned about Refuah, he's still reviewing the lessons. Yosef is not just alive physically, he's alive spiritually. And that's what Yaakov brings his ruach back. A father, it says in the Gemara, a father and mother who put their hearts and their blood and their time into the kids. Growing up, it's not like a monkey that they don't need diapers or they need to be put in a college, and parents go through everything to get the kids education, to put them in the right direction. The Torah way of life. So when Yaakov, after putting his whole life into Yosef, he wants, the Gemara says, when parents who put everything into the child, to put him in the way of the Torah, and he goes off the derech, he takes a left turn, it's worse than the war of Gog and Magog. The final war that's supposed to, it should be Bechesed v'Rachamim. But the war of Gog and Magog, you know what the comparison is? For parents, it's worse when the child goes off the derech. And that's what Yaakov, when he hears Yosef is alive, he wants to hear the words Chai. Chai means that he's not just physically alive. I don't care. There's billions of people that are alive, that they're living, but they're walking dead. He wants to know if his son is alive. And alive means spiritually living the way of life according to the Torah, or by Gentiles according to the 7 mitzvot of living the way of life, to be moral, to be God-fearing, to be a monotheist, what have you, but whatever it is. Being alive for Yaakov is not enough. For him, what's going to get him over the barrier is the Neshama. It's the spirit, it's the Ruach that counts over here. And that's what Yaakov is teaching us over here. And that's screaming in our ears today in our generation, where so many of our brothers and sisters have gone and made a left turn. The universities, you know, they met the Christines and they met the Johns and the Pauls or whatever it is. What's wrong? He's such a nice guy. He's such a nice woman. She's such a nice woman. Why not? Let's get along. Greeks! No! Is my son alive? I want to know is somebody alive. And that's what Hashem wants. Is the Nar with you? After 120, are you going to bring the Nar? Are you going to bring yourself and show that you went through life with the Torah way of life? Or you got lost in the university? You became a Greek. Well, Baruch Hashem, you saw that Yosef did not become a Greek. And that's the lesson for all of us. If Yosef was all alone in San Francisco, in the colleges, the universities, none of that affected him because he had his parents' Torah with him. And he stayed Chai. And that's why we say, David Sal Chai v'Kayam. Because we care about the spirit, the Neshama, that's going to be eternal. And the physical world is going to be only 120 years. Od Yosef Chai. And that's what Yaakov got, Baruch Hashem. Next point that we wanted to mention This I heard from Rav David Laniado a few days ago. The Shiur of Lev Aaron, that we saw by Yosef HaSadik. We mentioned before that they're going to bring out 3 people after 120 years. Yosef is one of them. They're going to say, why they bring a guy and they say, why did you do Averot? He's like, what do you mean? Look how good looking I am. And they bring Yosef out and say, were you more good looking than Yosef? But Rabbi David Laniado, you wanted to add another point. He said, the unthinkable. He tells the brothers after 22 years that don't worry, I have no grudge against you. What you did was for the best. You sold me to Egypt, and look where I am now. I'm in a position to save you from poverty, from starvation. It was all for the good. I have no grudge against you. Now that's how he did it. I'm sure he worked a lot on himself. But the next time a person is harmed by somebody, physically, morally, emotionally, or he just is not working on his midot. He thinks like, everybody's against him in this world. And he holds a grudge. Think about Yosef. Are you worse off than Yosef, that was sold into slavery and he had no money? He had every reason to hold a grudge and take revenge. Are you better than him? The answer is an outstanding no. You're not better than him. So every time you have to see Yosef in front of us, we're about to get back at somebody. We're about to hold a grudge. And so many families have been lost. When the father and the mother passed away after 20 years, all of a sudden, this guy got another 10,000. This guy this. They don't talk, brothers, for 20 years. They don't talk anymore. For stupid things that happen. If Yosef is not holding a grudge, and he should, why should we? Brothers and sisters, the Jewish people are all one family. Come together and not separate. Yosef HaSadik, I don't hold a grudge. Next point is that we saw the famous meeting between Yaakov Avinu and Paro. When somebody comes to the emperor of the whole known world, who is basically in charge of the whole, Paro, you expect him Paro to give you the bracha, to bless you. What does Yaakov do? He comes, he respects the king like the king is supposed to be respected. But then it says something very strange. He blessed Paro and he walked away. Yosef was asking his father to come and to represent himself. Of course, we have to be representable to the world. But Yaakov was teaching us that although we have to represent ourselves to the world, but we're not supposed to live the world like Goyim. We can't be like Moses Mendelssohn that says, let's be Orthodox at the heart, but outside, act like a Christian. So what if I go to Biden, I go to all these big figures in the world today? You have to first say that you're Jewish, and then you're an American. Like the African Americans. First to say they're African, and then they're American. No, Rabbi, I'm first American, and then I'm Jewish. No, you're not. First, get this point straight. Yaakov is teaching us wherever I go, even before Paro. First, I'm Jewish. And then I happen also to live in Egypt. Thank you for giving me a place to live. But don't forget that it's not gonna make me an Egyptian. It's not gonna make me a Greek. It's not gonna make me an American. First, I'm Jewish. And then, thank you for giving me a place to live. That's Yaakov. Last point that we want to talk about today. We saw that we mentioned earlier that how Yosef was the ultimate person that taught us not to hold a grudge, to have a havat chinam and to come together. But immediately after that, we see that when he reveals himself, he starts crying over the shoulders of his brother Benjamin. And Benjamin is crying over the shoulder of Yosef. So Rashi says they're crying because they saw with the Ruach HaKodesh, divine inspiration, that the Beit HaMikdash and the Mishkan Shiloh is going to be destroyed because of Sinat Chinam. Meaning they thought after this meeting, after 22 years, we're all going to be all fancy love, no more machlokot, no more grudges. But they saw with Ruach Kodesh that this is going to continue. And that's why they cried. And that's what's going to lead us to the next point over here. We know that on Simchat Torah, we got a very big wake-up call. Or, like they're going on to say October 7th. It's not a crime to say Simchat Torah. Simchat Torah and Shabbat. That's what it was. The two holiest days of the year. And we have to keep going back to that. Because we cannot become into a situation that became, okay, now the soldiers are already 70, 80 days almost in Gaza. Life is going back to normal. You know, and little by little, we hear here and there that the machlokot and the grudging and the Baruch Hashem is not the same way that it was. But we're getting back to normal. If you don't wake up and we don't learn the lessons of Simchat Torah and Shabbat, this is what Yosef and Binyamin cried for. We didn't learn the lesson. The Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. 2 was enough. Mishkan Shiloh for 369 years. It was there, but it was destroyed. And this is going to lead us to tonight. Tonight, in Eretz Yisrael right now, as we're talking, is nighttime. Asara B'Tevet. What is this day about? We know that there's 4 fasts that we do. 4 fasts. In order to think about the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. This is one of them. It's brought down in the Navi Zechariah. But this one is very, very different from other ones. We know that any fast that falls on Friday, except for Yom Kippur, because it's from the Torah, which never, with the calendar that we have today, doesn't fall on Friday. But if it did fall, any of these fasts for the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, we'll push it off. The biggest example, Tisha B'Av. It never falls on a Friday. And if it did, we will push it up to Sunday. Not so this fast. This fast this year falls on Friday. And we're going to fast if Moshiach Chas V'Shalom does not come in the next few hours. But if it doesn't come, Chas V'Shalom, the fast stays on Friday. We don't want to change it. Why? Because Chazal told us, there's a pasuk in Yecheskel that it says, Be'etzem Hayzom Hayom Hazeh. In the middle of this day, on Asara B'Tevet, Hashem spoke to the Navi Yecheskel. And it says also by Yom Kippur in the Torah, Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh. And since this is on the 10th day of Tevet, and over there by Yom Kippur is the 10th day of Tishrei, so we make a comparison. Just like over there, Yom Kippur, whichever day falls out, we fast. So too on Friday. Oh, what about Shabbat? Says one of the Rishonim, the Abu Dharam, that it doesn't, with the calendar that we have today, it doesn't fall on Shabbat. But if it did, we can't move it. We'll fast on Shabbat even though it's not in the Torah, it's only in the Navi. Why? What's so special about this fast from the other fast? First of all, we have to understand that this was the beginning of the end of the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. When the Nebuchadnezzar came in the middle of winter, usually armies don't go and have a combat with wage war, but he came and he surrounded the walls of Yerushalayim. And the siege took for 3 years. And our sages tell us the beginning of the end is the most tragic of all. That's why on Tisha B'Av, when the most of the burning happened on the 10th of Av, but why do we fast on the 9th? Because the fire started burning. The destruction started. And that's why this is the special day that we fast even on Friday. But that's not all. A bigger chidush on this, and we'll finish with this, the Khatam Sofer, one of the sages that we had in the past 200 years, he revealed to us that this day is the day that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem, sits in judgment in the court of heaven in order to see, based on our merits, especially the Jewish people, if we're going to have the Beit HaMikdash rebuilt this year. Meaning on Rosh Hashanah, he didn't sit down and talk about the Beit HaMikdash. And Yom Kippur, no. Simchat Torah, no. But today, he's going to sit in judgment and review our merits. Really want the Beit HaMikdash. Do we really want HaKadosh Baruch Hu back with us, the Shekhinah? Or, as somebody said, when Moshiach comes and the Beit HaMikdash is built, you call somebody in America or whatever you want, anywhere in the world. Moshiach is here. You coming? You know what? I'm very happy that Moshiach is here. I'm going to write you a check for $5 million. Thank you very much for calling. Send me a picture. No, but come. Come. The Yerushalayim, Beit HaMikdash is rebuilt. The Moshiach is here. I'm a little comfortable here. I'll come for a visit. I'll fly in. But here's the check. You know what? I'll send you a transfer. It'll go faster. Why am I saying this? Because like we said that today, according to a lot of Mefarshim, is also the Yochai of Ezra Sofer. When Ezra Sofer came back from the first, after the first destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, only after 70 years, not a lot of people wanted to come back. Although they had the promise that they're going to come back and build the second Beit HaMikdash. Ezra said, come back. He's like, no, we have houses here. We're married to non-Jewish wives. We have non-Jewish kids. Only after 7 years of exile. See what acculturation does. After 20 years, I go back to LA. I see a lot of things that I never imagined I would see. Because we get used to it. We get used to October 7th. It was just another... No, it wasn't. Ezra Sofer, the Chazal tell us, our sages tell us that this, when he came back, the second Beit HaMikdash was supposed to be the final one. But the Jews didn't get up and come. And the third one, after 2,000 years, no, Rabbi, I'm very happy. I'm with my mansion, with my maids. I'm chilling. I'll send you another check. God doesn't need your checks. He wants you to get up and do teshuvah and come already. How many years he has to sit on Asara B'Tevet and see if he's going to build a Beit HaMikdash? He's longing to come back to his home. He wants his kids back. He wants the kid hugs us and kiss us. So what do you have to do? Learn from Yosef. I'm not going to hold a grudge. I love you, my brother, my sister. It doesn't mean I love you the way you are and continue the way you are. No, I'm going to show you the way. Come back. We have a beautiful Torah. We're not going to mingle with the Goyish cultures. We're not Greeks. We're going to come back, like Rachel Imenu says. We're going to come back to the real Jewish way of life that Hashem wants. When Hashem brings the Moshiach, He wants to hug us. But we have to also show Him that we're going to have Avat Chinam. Avat Chinam means to love our fellow Jews and to bring them back. Don't leave them like that. No, let him be, Rabbi. He's happy with that. No. I'm not going into details. Hashem is not happy with that. Show him the way. Come back. We all have a light inside on Chanukah. We saw after October 7th, we saw how many people are coming back. Continue. The soldiers screaming, why don't you do it? Why don't you pray for me? At 4:30, I could have not been shot. We have a lot of work to do. But at least, let's start this Asar V'Tevet and show Hashem that we want you back. We want your hug back. And we're going to B'ezrat Hashem do our part and have a Ahavat Chinam. And not only Ahavat Chinam, but bring our brothers and sisters back. And B'ezrat Hashem with this, we should have Beit HaMikdash built this year, B'ezrat Hashem today already, and have all our brothers and sisters, including all of us, to do Teshuvah V'Ahava. Shabbat Shalom Varach.